sketch is all about is getting your ideas on that sheet of paper. On the separate paper, you want to create a square, I'd say about the size of a Rubik's Cube, saltine cracker. You can even go as large as craft cheese, or a post-it note, or a floppy disk, if you know what a floppy disk is. But I'm going to lightly sketch out my box up here. I promise to let you know getting to the darkening part, so if you really want to keep here for this little guy. But notice I'm going to create lots and lots of lines in here. That's really what we look for our foundation. If you don't like one side, you can always straighten it out until you have it the way that you want it. I'm just leaving enough room at the top of my box to add in his eyes. I'm just very lightly sketching out my box, so I'm not worried about this being a perfect square at all. But within my square, I'll add in a few construction lines, and these lines will help us anchor down the features of his face and really his body. Lightly adding in one line right down the middle of the box to divide it in half. I'm also stretching it up towards the top to help me to add in his eyes. Along the inside here of the box, towards the top third, very lightly sketching out a horizontal line, stretching it from left to right or right to left on either side. I'm going to start to build out his tires, but first I also want to give him a ground plane. So hovering below my box, I'll add in another horizontal line to give him a ground plane for where his tires are going to sit. I'm going to use my construction line on either side to build out these sideways letter L's, or you can also think of it as you're adding in these number 7 shapes. So I'm just building these out, just stretching these right back over towards my horizontal line at the bottom, really adding in a ground plane. I'm also going to close it off down here at the bottom by drawing in just another sideways letter L shape. I don't want to make his tires too big since he's not a monster truck Wally, but his tires are something that I want to keep. So once I have them in place the way that I like, I can start to go back with more of a heavier line to really lock them in here for him. So notice now how his tires are starting to stand out here, really from the rest of all of this underdrawing that we sketched out here. But I also want to add in some tread lines along the insides of the tires, and that's by drawing in some more little horizontal lines here along the inside. And there's really no right or wrong amount in how many tread lines that you add in here for Wally. And I'll do the same thing here along the left-hand side as I did on the right. But now I want to add in his eyes. And to really add in his eyes, I'm going to use my vertical construction line here for him. I'm going to stretch these up almost towards the very top, but you don't have to go as far as I'm going at all. But I'm going to lightly sketch out a couple of diagonal lines. So I'm only stretching these out over towards the side here of my original box, because Wally can hide himself back into his box to protect himself from all of the sandstorms that are left out on Earth. So right now I've got more of an arrow that's pointing up, but I want to close off the bottom here and by drawing in this letter U shape, or you can also think of it as you're adding in this upside down taco shell shape. And Wally has really these sad, melancholy eyes. So I want to really give him these big, expressive eyes to really convey all of that emotion. Because there's really no dialogue in the front third of this movie. And Andrew Stanton, the director of this film, even watched Charlie Chaplin films to really get inspired for how he wanted Wally to act on screen. But I'm going to start to go back and lock in these upside down taco shell shapes, or think of them as gumdrop shapes here too. And if it helps at all, you could definitely turn that board that's on your lap, because artists have these black discs, as I have here on the desk. So I can turn it and move it so I don't get those awkward arm movements. So So you definitely use a board that's on your lap to your advantage. Really whatever feels more comfortable to you as the artist. Now, Anderson, during the early development of this film, went to a baseball game, and when he went to that baseball game, he had a pair of binoculars in his hands, and he really looked at those pair of binoculars and really saw a pair of eyes staring back at him, and really got inspired for how he wanted Wall-E to look. And so for these eyes or these lenses, you can put them anywhere inside of the shape that you want. You can even turn them into heart shapes if you want to. But I'm going to sketch out a full circle and touching the top and the bottom here of my taco shell shape to really give him more of these sad eyes here. But I also want to add in a highlight to his eyes by drawing in a smaller circle up at the top and going back and shading around it to give the eyes a bit of a light source. You want to make sure that his eyes are really the darkest part here of the sketch. It's where all the attention and focus goes to, is right inside these eyes. So I'm just making sure that they're really standing out nice and dark. It also helps to wake up our robot here on our page, so he's even starting to come to life. But now we can also, not your daddy, but I'm going to start to add in that pole that connects right back in towards the top here of his body. So I'm going to hop here towards the top of the box and just drawing in just a small little square, or you can also think of it as you're adding in a little staple. And I'm going to use my construction line by drawing in a vertical line. So I'm just stretching these up towards his eyes here on either side. And I'll also connect the pole here in the middle. And since this pole can go up and down, I'm going to even add in some smaller lines here, or some more little lines here along the inside here for him. All right, with all this in place, I'd say we're about halfway through our sketch here of little Wall-E. So how are our drawings turning out so far? Pretty good? Are we having fun? That's the most important part about drawing, is really having fun with this here anyway. But now we can really add in those claws that he's got for hands. Now to add in his claw hands, you want to think of it as you're adding in some diamond shapes here on either side. I think of them as they're more of these takeout boxes, because I'm going to use the corner here of my original square. I'll lightly sketch out a diagonal line, stretching this here along the outside. And along the inside, I'll add in a shorter diagonal line. And I'm going to connect these two together by adding in a couple of diagonal lines. So I'm just stretching these right back over towards either point here for him. And I'll do the same thing over along the right-hand side. Now, Wall-E doesn't necessarily have a voice actor. It's actually a guy named Ben Bird who did really the sound files for this film, and actually created over 2,000 sound files to really create Wall-E's voice. Ben Bird is also really well known for creating sound files for other robots in the Star Wars franchise, if you're a big fan of that series. I'm just going back and just really locking in these little takeout boxes here for his hands. But I also want to add in more of a little knuckle too by hopping up towards the top, and I'll sketch out a small little rectangle up at the top. And then I'm just going to divide this into half. So I'm just turning it into a capital T shape here on either side. We can also go back and lock in the rest of our square here along the sides. So anything that's not being covered up by his hands here for him, or even his tires. So I'm just going back and just really picking out my favorite lines here along the sides. And I'm also going to go back and even lock in my center horizontal line here along the inside. Because Wally is also a little ventilation system along the left-hand side. So I'm going to draw in a little rectangle over here along the left. Might be covered by his little hand there for him, but that's totally okay. I'll even add in some more little horizontal lines here along the inside. I'll even give him even a little button down here along the bottom. But we also see that he is powered by something over here on the right. Somebody know what he is powered by? Something that we get like every day. Yeah, the sun. To add in, so I'm going to add in a little sundial here for him. And I'll even add in some little bars here along the right-hand side to give him a little battery indicator. And you can even shade it in how much battery life that he's got left. And his name is also printed down here along the bottom right-hand side of his body. And his name is an acronym. Somebody know what his name stands for? What's another word for trash? Yeah, waste. And A is for allocation. And the two L's are something that he does. If you want to put something into a truck, what do you have to do? Yeah, you have to load it. But what else? How did you load it? Yeah, you have to lift it. So he's a load lifter, and then E stands for what planet he's on. Yeah, Earth. So he's a waste allocation load lifter Earth class. Because there's Wallas who are on the Axiom, and they are Axiom class. And I drew in his name backwards so it fit more over here on the right-hand side here of his body. But you could go back and lock in, darken up, really any of the lines that have started to fade away throughout our drawing process here for a little Wally. Really the last step an artist needs to make though is a signature. And you can sign your name wherever you feel it fits best. And after you're all done, you have sketched out your very own little Wally. All right, so how did we all do? Pretty good, not too bad.